All right, welcome into Prize Picks on 5 here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel, also sponsored by NBA Central. We now have a partnership with the Twitter account, The NBA Central, so look for more general NBA content from us as well as the Heat content. Of course, we do not know how much longer we will have Heat content. Well, we'll have some, but we don't know how much longer we'll have games to talk about on Prize Picks. You can always download the Prize Picks app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, depending on whether you're Android or Apple. You can also go to PrizePicks.com. You can do it there. Make sure you use the code 5, F-I-V-E, get that initial deposit matched up to $100. If you're planning on playing $100, I would put the money down right away because you'll get the full $100 bonus, and you do not have any rollovers or anything like that. Money goes right into your account. So again, use the code 5, F-I-V-E. People ask all the time, is this legal? It is legal in most states, including the state of Florida where we're at. So check that out first. But again, you can play more than just the NBA. They've got NHL, MLB. They got the NFL futures on there, MMA, esports, golf, tennis. It's all there. So just go to prizepicks.com, but make sure you use that code F-I-V-E. All right, I'm Ethan J. Skolnick, or Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick in the 5 Reasons Sports. We got David Eversole. You can follow him at David W. Eversole. And today we're going to focus on the other two play-in games. Yesterday, there was a little bit of a weird one between the Heat and the Hawks. So Jimmy Butler went under. Trae Young went under. David and I tend to like to play the overs, but I have a couple unders in here as well. Let's start with the early game. Bulls and Raptors today. Again, this is a 9-10 game. David, what do you see here on – let's start on the Raptors side.
Let's see. On the Raptors side, who did I go with? Was it I think it was – do we look at Podol? I think we were both talking about Podol.
Yeah, I think we both liked Podol.
Yeah, I like him over 11.5 points. He's done pretty well against Chicago in these few games. I know you look at these numbers. I throw out the last 5 games. I mean, pretty much. You got to kind of look at this specific scenario. I think he's going to pick up the 11 points, and you liked him as well on something, I think.
Yeah, I like him on points and rebounds, actually. I think you mentioned looking at the last 5 games, and usually that's valuable. You can find that each player on the upper left side. But I would be super careful about it, again, like you said, because a lot of the last 5 games for some of these teams, they were not meaningful. You know, the Raptors, they kind of knew they had a play-in spot. They were not as locked in as some other teams, but they knew they had a play-in spot. They just didn't know which one. So I would be careful there. I like Podol in general because Vucevic is not a great defender. And so even though the Bulls have played pretty good defense, actually, over the past couple of months, I expect that he'll be able to get off a little bit. On the Bulls side, I was looking for a prop, and I got to say, I was torn on DeRozan. And I almost played him. He's playing against his old team. Historically, though, he does not play well in these type of games. About 5 years ago, before they made a trade for Kawhi and ended up winning the championship in 19, there was a study done of the top 25 players in the league at that time and whose performance went up the most in the playoffs and whose went down the most. And literally, it was Kawhi's went up the most and DeRozan's went down the most. And so I just don't trust him in these type of games, and the number at 22.5. And Zach LaVine made me a little bit nervous also, but there's a prop up there. Zach LaVine's going to get 2 dunks, isn't he? I mean, I know he's not a premium dunker anymore, like he used to be. Shoots a lot more threes. But that 1 dunk number, I don't know. I felt like that was fairly secure.
It's not bad to throw in if you have like a 4, 5, 6 pick, because even if it pushes, it doesn't really hurt you. It just bumps you down to the next tier.
Exactly.
But back to DeRozan, I actually took him under 17.5 field goal attempts. Like you said, I think he might go into a little bit of a shell. He's not really, other than his minute, he's not a super, super high volume guy. He's more of an efficiency guy, I think, when he's on. And I just feel like they're going to look at other options in terms of just spreading the ball around a little bit. Like you said, LaVine will probably get some action. Vucevic, of course. So I just think there's a few other mouths to feed on the offensive end. And I just see that being high number at 17.5 for DeMar.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I was careful of his numbers in general. This Bulls team, actually, their net rating since the All-Star break, they're 4th in the league. So the Bulls have been playing pretty decent basketball lately. I know everybody seems to be picking the Raptors today. They're a 5-point favorite in most spots. I feel like for the Bulls to win, DeRozan's going to have a strong game. But you're right. A lot of it may come at the line. I don't know necessarily that it's all going to come with the field goal attempts. So I wouldn't be averse to playing that the way that you're talking about. All right, use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Let's switch out to the other game. OKC and the Pelicans. No Zion still. OKC really not supposed to be here. It's kind of a remarkable story that they finished ahead of Dallas. They're in kind of, I guess you would say, year three of a rebuilding plan where now they have like 1 million picks. These two teams, by the way, don't be surprised if this is a Western Conference final in a couple of years.
That's a young core right there.
And they have all the draft picks. These two teams have, all of these two teams in Utah, have all the draft picks in the Western Conference over the next 3 years. Okay, they are loaded up with draft picks. I'm going to start here with the New Orleans side. Brandon Ingram's been tremendous, but that number is enormous. 45.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I don't know. OKC has been pretty decent defensively second half of the season. I know that they've had some struggles in some higher profile games, but overall their defense has not been awful. I don't know. 45.5 is a lot. I mean, you're talking about, essentially, I know his points number is 30.5. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. I like a lot of the unders on him, actually. I like him under 30.5 points. I like him under 7 rebounds. His assist numbers have been really good. So one that might be a sneaky over will be his assist numbers. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think his numbers are a little bit inflated based on his recent play.
Yeah, and look, I understand with assist numbers with New Orleans. Some of them are up because they don't really have a pure point guard. McCollum, handles the ball a lot. Ingram handles the ball a lot. But that number was very high for me. I almost played the CJ overs. I would be, if I'm going to play an over on either of them, I would be more inclined to play McCollum. But the matchup with Dort worries me.
I took him over rebounds and assists.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, he's looking to do other things, and he averages 16 and change rebounds and assists versus OKC. Which, I know a lot of people don't look at historicals, but I think with these two teams, you kind of get some trends a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, I think you can sort of look at the matchup and say, okay, he's been consistently around 15, 16 rebounds and assists. I feel confident. It could go either way, of course, but just looking at the history, I think, like you said, he might have trouble scoring. 21.5, I think he is for points, but I like him over on the other rebounds and assists for sure.
If Dort was not on the other side, I would play CJ's points numbers over because he is one of the guys. We talk about Kawhi. CJ is a guy who traditionally in the playoffs, his numbers have gone up. That's not the case for a lot of players. But I'm with you in that I would be more inclined to play the other numbers for him. I think the assist number for him, even on its own, could be fairly comfortable. They're going to trust him. Ball's going to be in his hands a lot. And he's been in these kind of situations. Portland made a deep run 3-4 years ago to the Western Conference Finals. He was a huge part of that. He played virtually as well as Dwayne, as Dame did during that period of time. I'm going to play it over. Again, these last 5 games, we're putting them up, David. I don't know what to make of them. I don't. I mean,
and he's right there. I mean, it's not like he's had 0 or 1 assist in these games. I mean, a couple made shots either way. You have to look at like the potential assists and things like that, and if the team's shooting well on a given night. So, assists means you're helping someone else score. So, that second component has to be there to get these assist numbers.
All right, now I'm over on the OKC side. There's only one guy I'm going to play because I don't know what to expect from a lot of their young players. So I was just looking at the SGA props. This feels to me this year like this is like a Dwayne Wade leap for him. I remember when Dwayne sort of came into his own in his second season. We see this sort of a Ja Morant leap too in his second season where SGA is just doing things that you could see the signs, but he hadn't emerged into this yet. His shot attempts are going to be way up in this game. I looked at all of his numbers. I don't know how efficient he'll be. There'll obviously be a plan for him. Herb Jones is probably going to guard him quite a bit, even though he's quite a bit bigger, just to sort of just bother him a little bit. New Orleans has some pretty decent perimeter defenders. CJ can be a sieve at times, but I'm going to go with SGA's field goal attempts over. I think whether he's efficient or not, they're going to put the ball in his hands and allow him to be the guy to try to carry them out of this thing and to play Minnesota in the next play-in game. So I'm going to go with SGA over 21.5 field goal attempts.
I like it.
You got anything on that side?
I mean, Josh Giddey, was the only one I was maybe looking at some of his potential fantasy score is always an interesting one. He's at 37.5. He's been kind of hovering around that number. So if I was going to take a flyer on anybody, it might be Giddey. I would maybe dive in a little bit deeper into some of his numbers. But the fantasy score could be friendly because if they don't turn the ball over a lot and he gets a couple steals and has a general overall game, a lot of times they can eclipse the fantasy number, even if they're not great in one particular stat.
Yeah, this is a strange game. I will tell you. My comfort level with this, only because of the lack of experience for a lot of these players, particularly in the OKC side, in a sort of winner go home type scenario, which they're in tonight. You just don't know how players are going to respond. I feel a little more comfortable playing the Bulls Raptors game tonight, just because those teams have a lot of players who've made deeper runs. This New Orleans side, and again, I know New Orleans sort of outplayed what people expected last year without Zion and all that, but I don't necessarily trust this game as much. So if I was going to play one of the two games, I would play Bulls Raptors, and then kind of look ahead. And I think we saw in the first game, there are things you look like guarantees, like Jimmy Butler being over 20. What they put him at 27.5 points.
Yeah.
Then they took the taco down to
23.5,
and he had 21 early in the fourth quarter and didn't score again. So there are going to be some strange results in some of these games. Again, a one-game sample size. It's not a normal situation for NBA players. But again, I'm going to play Levine over on the dunks, like you said, probably better in a 3, 4, or 5 prop play. DeRozan staying away from. I think we both like Podol, to do some things against Vucevic inside. He's been very good since he was acquired from San Antonio, and they spent a lot to get him. And so I'm going to play him over. The other one, the other guy I looked at quite a bit. I looked at Anunoby and Scotty Barnes on the Toronto side. It seems like a zero-sum game with the two of them. When one of them scores more, the other scores less. And I just don't know which matchup is going to favor more against Chicago, and to see what direction they go there, and who guards who is sort of unclear right now. So I wasn't really comfortable playing Barnes over. I might play Anunoby over on the right category. I looked at a few of those as well. Before we go, anything else jump out to you about the 4 teams tonight?
I think the New Orleans game is going to be maybe a little bit more of an entertaining game.
Yeah.
But I think the Bulls Raptors game might be a little bit more competitive, if you will. But like you said, just Chicago has a lot more proven guys. I think if there was a prop for CJ on threes, which I was a little disappointed not to see that. If he was at 2.5 threes, I would definitely go over there. But FVV is another interesting guy because you talked about players that step up in the playoffs, and he's definitely one of them. So I know Fred hasn't had the best season per se, but he's also one of those sneaky guys that could give you a Kyle Lowry yesterday type game. So it'd be interesting to look at his numbers as well.
Yeah, and if you look at his last 6 weeks, his numbers have come up. His efficiency numbers have come up. His point totals have come up. His assist numbers have come up. So he's played better as the season has progressed. Siakam's the other one. We didn't discuss him. Against Chicago's front line, I feel like he could have some success. I thought, again, the numbers were a little bit inflated for him.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't go that direction. But I would be more inclined to play him over than under on most of it.
Yeah, this is interesting with him and Vuk with a combined 41.5 points.
Yeah, that's one I looked at as well. All right, play it over at PrizePicks. Use the code 5FIVE. The next playing games, of course, coming up on Friday. So we'll have previews for those. That'll be the Heat against the Bulls or the Raptors. And then the Wolves against either OKC or New Orleans. Have a good day, everybody.